There comes a moment when heaven itself leans closer, not to comfort but to confront. When truth burns through illusion, when love stops whispering and begins to roar. God is not silent, and he is not safe. He risks being misunderstood, rejected, even hated, just to awaken your soul. The truth he speaks isn't meant to please, it's meant to set you free. There are moments in life when the truth of God enters not as a gentle breeze, but as a storm that tears through everything false and fragile. We often imagine God's presence as a warm light that soothes, but before it comforts, it confronts. Before it heals, it exposes. Truth is not the soft murmur we hope for. It is the thunder that shakes our foundations so that what is real may remain. God's truth does not begin with peace, it begins with disruption. The heart that has grown comfortable in its own illusions must first be unsettled before it can be renewed. We long for God to affirm our desires, to bless our every path, but his love is far too holy to indulge our self-deception. When his light falls upon us, it does not merely illuminate, it reveals. It shows what we have buried, ignored, or justified. It reaches into the corners of the soul where we have stored our excuses and sweeps them away with unrelenting honesty. The first touch of divine truth can feel like judgment, but it is mercy disguised in fire. For what kind of love would allow you to remain blind? What kind of mercy would let you live comfortably in chains? God's truth comes to cleanse, and cleansing is rarely comfortable. Just as a wound must be washed before it can heal, the soul must endure the sting of truth before it can be restored. When you encounter that truth, it feels personal, as if the very words of heaven have found you hiding. The light of God has this way of stripping away every mask. It does not flatter the image we have built of ourselves. It confronts the reality beneath it. The truth reveals how often we have traded conviction for convenience, how we have mistaken our comfort for peace. And though the revelation cuts deeply, it is not cruelty. It is the surgery of grace. In Scripture, we see again and again that divine truth comes as a shock. When the prophets spoke, they did not soothe the people with sweet reassurances. They spoke with fire, because holiness cannot coexist with falsehood. The voice of God has always been both beautiful and unbearable. It breaks what must be broken. It leaves no room for pretense. It invites repentance, not through gentle suggestion, but through holy exposure. When God confronts you, it is never to condemn, but to cleanse. His words may sting because they strip away what is unworthy of you. He calls out your hidden pride not to humiliate you, but to free you from the prison of self-worship. He reveals the idols you cling to, not to shame you, but to return your heart to its rightful place, resting in him. Confrontation of truth is an act of divine love, wearing the face of discomfort. Many resist this process. We want a God who comforts our emotions, but not one who challenges our habits. We want a gospel that soothes but does not shake. Yet such faith produces no transformation. It leaves the soul untouched, still enslaved to its own desires. God's truth is not a decoration for our lives, it is a demolition. It tears down the false walls of self-righteousness and demands that we rebuild on the foundation of humility. Divine confrontation is not an event, it is a continual process. The closer you draw to God, the more light you must bear. His truth grows brighter as your understanding deepens, revealing even subtler forms of pride, fear, and hidden motives. The one who truly walks with God is not the one who feels comfortable in his presence, but the one who allows that presence to search and purify every part of the heart. Think of the way gold is refined. It must face the fire repeatedly, each time losing more of its impurities, until it reflects the image of the one who holds it. So it is with the soul under divine truth. The flames are not punishment, they are preparation. God's confrontation burns away what cannot last, so that what remains is real, eternal, and whole. When you encounter the truth, it may overturn everything you thought you understood. It may challenge your opinions, your priorities, even your relationships. Yet the discomfort is sacred, for it marks the place where God is working. The Spirit does not enter a life to decorate it, but to transform it. That means tearing down, rebuilding, cleansing, and sanctifying until nothing false remains. There will be moments when his truth feels harsh, when his silence feels cruel, when his discipline feels unbearable. But every moment of divine confrontation carries a hidden tenderness. God would not correct you if he did not claim you. He would not challenge your comfort if he did not care for your destiny. The very fact that he confronts you is evidence that he still believes you can become more than you are now. The cleansing of truth is not immediate. It unfolds in seasons, often through pain, loss, or realization. You may not recognize it at first, but what feels like the breaking of your world is often the rebuilding of your soul. God's truth moves through your life like a storm, unwelcome at first, but afterward everything smells of rain and renewal. There is a sacred violence in divine love, a holy insistence that you cannot remain the same. The truth does not compromise with the flesh, nor does it negotiate with pride. It demands surrender, not agreement. When God speaks, he is not seeking your validation, he is seeking your transformation. And though his words may unsettle, they are always spoken from a heart that would rather wound you with truth than comfort you with lies. This is why divine confrontation is the greatest mercy of all. It means God still sees something worth refining in you. It means he has not abandoned you to your delusions. He risks your misunderstanding so that you might finally understand him. He risks your resistance so that you might find release. Truth that only comforts cannot save. Truth that only pleases cannot purify. The truth of God must cleanse, and cleansing must always begin with confrontation. In its truest form, has always been a risk. To love is to open oneself to the possibility of being misunderstood, rejected, or betrayed. And if this is true for human hearts, how much more for the divine? The love of God does not remain distant, observing from safety. It steps into the fragile terrain of human will. It enters the chaos of our freedom and chooses to love, even when that love might not be returned. God, who could command obedience, instead risks rejection for the sake of relationship. This is the scandal of divine love. It refuses control. God could compel belief, demand submission, or silence rebellion. But love that is forced is not love at all. So he allows you to choose, knowing that choice carries the power to wound him. Every time he extends grace, he risks being ignored. Every time he calls your name, he risks your silence. Every moment he waits for your heart, he risks being left standing in the doorway of your soul. And still he loves. The love of God is not transactional. It is sacrificial. It is not given in response to your worthiness, but out of his nature. That is what makes it dangerous, because it reaches for you even when you are running away. It does not wait for perfection to arrive. It enters your imperfection and calls it home. Divine love walks unarmed into the territory of your rebellion and whispers, "I still choose you." This is love without guarantees, love that endures your denial, love that risks everything for the possibility of your return. From the very beginning, the story of God has been a story of risk. When he breathed life into humanity, he knew that the same breath could one day curse him. When he gave freedom, he knew it could be used to reject him. Yet he did not retract his hand. Love does not calculate the odds, it obeys its nature. And God's nature is love, even when love costs him everything. At Calvary, that risk became visible. Love stretched itself across a cross, arms open to a world that mocked it. There was no assurance that we would understand, no promise that we would respond. Yet still, he gave. He risked being forgotten by the very ones he died to save. The nails did not hold him there. Love did. It was love that refused to protect itself. Love that bore rejection so that rejection might be redeemed. The cross is the highest expression of divine vulnerability, the eternal God taking the risk of being wounded by his own creation. In your life, that same love continues to risk itself daily. It enters your doubts, your anger, your indifference. It pursues you when you withdraw, speaks softly when you resist, and forgives when you fall again. The love of God is not fragile. It is fierce. It will not give up simply because you push it away, but it will never force itself upon you. Love that coerces ceases to be love. Love that risks remains pure. God's love stands at the threshold of your will, knocking, not breaking in. it invites, it waits, it hopes. Every act of divine patience is a gamble of grace, a willingness to be wounded for the sake of your redemption. You may turn away. You may harden your heart. You may even curse his name. Yet his love does not retreat. It lingers in the ruins, calling you back, whispering that you were made for more than resistance. This is what makes divine love unlike any other. It carries both infinite strength and infinite vulnerability. It has the power to create galaxies, yet it chooses to wait for the consent of a single human heart. It could demand, yet it desires. It could destroy, yet it forgives. Such love is not safe. It is not convenient. It is dangerous because it exposes itself fully to rejection for the hope of genuine communion. You may wonder why God allows himself to be wounded by those he loves. The answer is simple but profound, because love that cannot be wounded cannot truly love. To risk is to value the beloved above self-protection. And in that risk, God reveals what love truly is. Not sentiment, not comfort, but self-giving. He risks his glory for your salvation, his peace for your reconciliation, his Son for your freedom. Even now, that love is reaching for you, not demanding, but inviting. It does not ask you to be perfect. It asks you to be honest. It does not promise a painless journey. It promises presence through the pain. God risks being forgotten today so that you might remember him tomorrow. He risks your disbelief so that one day, when your heart finally breaks, you might see that he never stopped loving you. Divine love walks the narrow path between sovereignty and surrender. It rules the universe, yet waits for your yes. It holds the stars in place, yet stoops to wash your feet. Such love is not safe because it does not shield itself from pain. It enters it. It walks into the risk of rejection because it knows that only through risk can love remain real. And so, the story continues. Risking, loving, waiting. Not because he needs your love to be complete, but because his love longs to make you complete. He risks being unseen so that one day, when your eyes open, you will finally recognize the love that never stopped risking everything for you. There is a sacred tension woven into the fabric of human existence, a truth that few dare to embrace. Pain is not always punishment. Often, it is preparation. The hand of God does not destroy with discomfort, it purifies through it. The soul that prays for strength will find itself tested. The one who asks for wisdom will walk through confusion. And the one who longs to know God deeply will be invited into the fire of refinement. Pain, in the eyes of heaven, is not cruelty, it is craftsmanship. When gold enters the furnace, it does not protest. It surrenders to the heat, knowing that only the flame can separate impurity from beauty. So too must the soul yield when divine fire draws near. The pain you feel is not proof of God's absence. It is evidence of his work. He is not punishing you. He is polishing you. Every moment of discomfort is a chisel in his hand, carving away the parts of you that cannot carry your destiny. We often pray for God to remove the pain, unaware that the pain itself is his answer. He does not waste suffering. He weaves it into purpose. The discomfort you dread may be the very process that will set you free. For nothing false can survive the furnace. Pride burns away. Fear melts. Dependence on self is stripped down to dependence on him. And when the fire cools, what remains is truer, humbler, stronger, more like him. Pain refines because it reveals. It unmasks what comfort conceals. When life is easy, faith becomes theory. When life burns, faith becomes reality. In suffering, you discover what you truly believe, who you truly are, and whether your trust was ever real. It is in the nights of unanswered prayers and the silence of God that your faith is forged into something unbreakable. The pain is not your enemy, it is your awakening. Throughout Scripture, every vessel God used was refined through pain. Joseph was betrayed before he was elevated. David was hunted before he was crowned. Paul was imprisoned before he was heard. Even the Son of God was broken before he was glorified. Pain, therefore, is not a detour in the divine journey. It is the path itself. The fire does not come to destroy what is precious, but to destroy what is temporary. When discomfort surrounds you, remember this: the furnace is not your grave, it is your birthplace. You are not being buried, you are being forged. The flame that feels unbearable today is shaping the strength you will need tomorrow. God does not waste the fire. Every tear that falls in the heat of trial becomes the water that cools your soul in the aftermath of victory. There is purpose hidden in every ache, redemption wrapped inside every wound. The refining of pain is not swift. It lingers. It tests endurance, patience, and faith. You may cry for release, but heaven listens in silence, not because it is indifferent, but because the process is sacred. The silence of God in pain is not abandonment, it is attention. Like a craftsman who leans in close, he watches every flicker of the flame, ensuring it purifies but never destroys. The same fire that melts gold would consume straw. But you are not straw. You are chosen material, meant for lasting beauty. It is a mercy that God allows pain, for without it we would remain unformed, raw, and brittle. Ease does not strengthen character. Struggle does. The mountain is not conquered by comfort. The soul grows not by indulgence, but by endurance. The pain you endure today is not random. It is refinement tailored to your calling. The deeper your purpose, the hotter your fire. Many cry out, "Why must it hurt?" But perhaps the truer question is, what is this pain teaching me? For pain is not only the furnace, it is the teacher. It teaches humility when pride stands tall. It teaches empathy when indifference has grown cold. It teaches dependence when self-sufficiency has become an idol. And through it all, it teaches that God is not just present in the light of joy, but equally sovereign in the shadow of suffering. You may not understand the pain while you are in it, but refinement is rarely understood in the fire. It is recognized in the reflection that follows. When the heat fades, you will look back and see what was removed, what was strengthened, what was made whole. The scars that remain will not be marks of defeat, but of divine craftsmanship, signs that you have been touched by a holy process that pain alone could perform. Pain strips away the illusion of control. It reminds you that you are not the author of your story, only the clay in the potter's hands. And though his shaping hurts, his intention is never harm. The ache you feel is not his rejection, but his precision. He is molding your soul for something higher, deeper, and purer than comfort could ever produce. The furnace may roar, but his hands remain steady. So when the heat rises, do not curse the fire. Lean into it, trust it. Know that it has been permitted, not to consume you, but to cleanse you. God refines not to test your worth, but to reveal it. Every moment of discomfort, every unanswered question, every silent night is the sound of his hammer shaping eternity inside you. Pain, in his design, is not the end of your story. It is the holy process by which your true self begins to emerge. There is a kind of peace that is not peace at all, a stillness built on denial, a calm built on blindness. It feels safe because it avoids the truth. It feels comforting because it never challenges the heart. But God, in his fierce mercy, will not let you live long within that illusion. He comes not to decorate your delusion, but to dismantle it. For a false peace, though soft to the touch, is the most dangerous comfort a soul can know. It lulls you into spiritual sleep while the walls of truth stand just outside, waiting to be seen. The illusions we build are often born from fear. We fear being wrong, being weak, being wounded, so we construct defenses, ideas, habits, identities that protect us from exposure. We tell ourselves that we are fine, that our choices are justified, that our distance from God is not distance at all, but maturity. And yet, beneath that fragile surface, the soul knows it is not well. There is a quiet ache beneath every lie we live with. God's truth comes not to condemn that ache, but to answer it. When divine truth enters, illusion begins to crumble. What once looked like stability suddenly shakes. The masks we wore for years begin to crack under the weight of reality. It is in that moment when everything false starts to fall apart that God's presence feels most disruptive. Yet it is the disruption of deliverance. He is not destroying your peace, he is rescuing you from its counterfeit. For false peace is not built on faith, it is built on avoidance. Pride is the architect of illusion. It constructs an image of control and calls it strength. It refuses correction and calls it confidence. It resists humility and calls it wisdom. But the truth exposes pride for what it is, fear dressed in self-sufficiency. Pride keeps us safe from the humiliation of repentance, but far from the healing of grace. So God, in his relentless love, allows the illusion to collapse. He will let your false certainty break if it means your soul can finally breathe in honesty. Ignorance, too, offers its own brand of comfort. It tells us that not knowing is safer than knowing, that if we do not face the truth, we will not have to change. But ignorance is not innocence. It is the quiet rot of the spirit, the slow decay of discernment. God's truth breaks ignorance not with cruelty, but with clarity. He shines a light into the corners we refuse to enter, revealing what we feared to see, that our peace was never real, only rented from deception. When truth dismantles illusion, the process feels like loss. You mourn the image you had of yourself. You grieve the certainty you once held. But that grief is holy. It is the pain of awakening. To lose illusion is to gain reality. To be stripped of falsehood is to be clothed in freedom. What once felt like God taking something from you is, in fact, him returning something far greater, the ability to see. God does not expose illusion to humiliate you. He exposes it to liberate you. The truth he reveals is not a weapon, it is a window. Through it, you begin to see the world as it truly is, and yourself as you truly are. That vision is uncomfortable because it shows the distance between what you pretend to be and what you were created to become. But only by seeing the false can you begin to embrace the real. The breaking of illusion is not a single moment. It is a lifelong encounter with light. As long as pride and fear linger, truth will continue its holy work of dismantling. Each time you think you've arrived, God will show you another layer of illusion, another shadow that needs light. And though the process is painful, it is profoundly loving. For the more illusions you lose, the more freedom you gain. There is no greater kindness than truth that refuses to let you remain small. The peace you built on avoidance cannot compare to the peace that comes after surrender. The first depends on blindness. The second depends on trust. When God begins to tear down what you thought was safe, it is because he knows what true safety feels like. The kind that cannot be shaken by circumstance or fear. The breaking of illusion often begins with conviction, a sharp awareness that something within you has been pretending. Conviction is the voice of truth knocking at the door of deception, saying, "Let me in." You may resist it, afraid of what it will cost, but illusion costs far more. It costs authenticity, intimacy, and the ability to hear God clearly. Conviction, though painful, is proof that he is near enough to correct you. And when the walls finally fall, when the illusion is gone and your heart stands bare, you discover that what you thought was destruction was actually revelation. You begin to see that the false peace you clung to was keeping you from real rest. The pride you defended was hiding your dependence on him. The ignorance you preferred was starving your spirit of light. The truth does not destroy, it redefines. It tears down the fragile architecture of deception so that the house of your soul can be rebuilt on rock. The process is loud, messy, and terrifying, but it is holy. For God would rather you tremble in truth than sleep in illusion. The shaking you feel is not the wrath of God. It is the mercy of awakening. So when truth comes crashing into your comfort, do not mistake it for cruelty. It is heaven dismantling your delusion so that something eternal can be built in its place. God's truth will not leave your illusions standing because he loves you too much to let you live beneath them. What feels like ruin is revelation. What feels like breaking is beginning. The illusion must fall so that the real you, the one shaped by grace, anchored in honesty, and alive in truth, can finally stand. There is a sacred courage in the way God deals with humanity. a willingness to step into our rebellion with patience instead of wrath, to reach into our ruin with mercy instead of scorn. Each time God corrects you, he is taking a holy risk. He knows that his truth might wound your pride, that his discipline might drive you away, yet he chooses to confront you anyway. For love that refuses correction is not love at all, it is neglect. And the God who still corrects you is the God who still believes. Redemption. Divine correction is not God's rejection. It is his refusal to abandon what he began. He does not waste time rebuking what he has no hope for. His correction is a declaration that you are still his, still worth shaping, still capable of transformation. Sharp edge of his word, the weight of conviction, the discomfort of his silence, these are not signs of distance, but of closeness. A sculptor does not chisel what he has given up on. Every strike of his hand is proof that heaven still sees beauty beneath the roughness. The holy risk of correction lies in its uncertainty. God gives you the freedom to turn away. He knows the truth may offend before it saves, that exposure may humiliate before it heals. Yet he risks it because he would rather wound your pride than lose your soul. He would rather see you struggle under conviction than watch you drift away untouched. This is divine bravery, the willingness to love a creature who can reject its creator. Correction is a language only love can speak fluently. The world's kind of love flatters to avoid conflict. God's kind of love confronts to preserve life. When he convicts, he does not aim to destroy your confidence, but to rebuild it on truth. He will shatter the lies that cradle your comfort so that you can rest in something stronger, his will. And though his voice may sound stern, it carries the tenderness of a father who disciplines not out of anger, but out of hope. Every act of divine correction is a mirror held up to your soul. In it, you see both your weakness and his unwavering commitment. It reveals that he is still watching, still shaping, still believing that you are more than your mistakes. If God was silent in your sin, it would mean he had withdrawn his investment. But when he speaks through conviction, consequence, or clarity, it means he still has plans for you. Silence is abandonment. Correction is covenant. The holy risk is not only God's, it becomes yours as well. To receive correction requires humility. It requires the death of pride, the surrender of defense, the courage to admit, I was wrong. And in that humility, heaven and earth meet. Every soul that bends beneath divine discipline rises lighter, freer, more aligned with its purpose. Correction hurts because it dismantles illusions of control. But only through that surrender can transformation begin. God corrects you privately long before he allows you to fall publicly. That is his mercy. He whispers through conviction before he shouts through consequence. If you ignore the whisper, the volume increases, not because he delights in your pain, but because he refuses to let you drift too far. The more he loves you, the more he interrupts you. The absence of correction is not freedom. It is danger. Divine correction often feels like delay. You pray for progress, and God responds with pruning. You ask for blessing, and he answers with boundaries. Yet what feels like resistance, actually refinement. The holy risk of correction is that you might misinterpret love as opposition. But God does not withhold to punish. He withholds to protect. He removes what you think you need so that what you truly need can grow. Think of Jonah running from his calling, swallowed by a storm and a sea creature, not as punishment, but preservation. Think of Peter, rebuked for denying the one he loved, not to shame him, but to prepare him for leadership. Think of David, broken by the weight of his own sin, not destroyed, but restored. In each story, divine correction was the holy risk of heaven reaching into human failure, refusing to give up. The rebuke was love in disguise, mercy in motion. The holy risk also reveals a divine humility. The creator of galaxies chooses to engage with creatures who argue, resist, and misunderstand. He could simply move on, create anew, erase what has fallen. Yet he doesn't. He stays, he reasons, he wrestles. Every correction is a continuation of conversation, a dialogue between eternity and dust. When God corrects you, He is not pushing you away, He is pulling you back into communion. There is beauty in being corrected by God because it means you are still teachable, still moldable, still loved. The most dangerous place for the soul is not in failure, but in the illusion of perfection. The uncorrected heart grows hard, the corrected one becomes holy. Correction may sting, but it saves. It may humble, but it heals. It may strip you of pride, but it clothes you in truth. The discipline of heaven is never random. It is always precise, always personal. God does not strike wildly, He shapes intentionally. He prunes where growth has become tangled. He closes doors where wandering would lead to ruin, and He exposes what darkness tries to hide. Each correction carries the fingerprints of a Father who sees what you cannot yet understand. So when divine correction comes, through a word that pierces, a moment that humbles, or a season that breaks, do not despise it. It is not the end of God's patience. It is the proof of it. The holy risk of correction is God's way of saying, I still see more in you than what you've settled for. He would not bother to correct what He no longer loves, to not pursue what He has forsaken. The confrontation of truth is therefore not evidence of His anger. It is the echo of His faith in you. Every divine correction is heaven's gamble on your growth, a sacred risk that you might misunderstand love and call it cruelty. Yet still He takes that risk again and again, because to God your restoration is worth the misunderstanding. Your awakening is worth the ache. Your becoming is worth the battle. And as long as He continues to correct you, it means He has not stopped believing that the fire of truth can still refine the gold within your soul.